Let's get brutally honest. You wouldn't drive a car with broken brakes. You would not perform surgery without medical training. But every day, Catholics jump into dating with unhealed wounds. And they wonder why their relationships crash. Today, my friends, we are diagnosing your real readiness. What we're doing today is a soul surgery, and we're going to use the 7 diagnostic tests saints used before courtship. We're going to look at the 3 neurological signs you're still trauma bonded to your past, clinical studies and scriptures, and we're going to look at 10-point dating readiness examen that you'll take. And here's the thing. You're going to pull out your phones. You're going to open your notes. This isn't just a talk. It's an intervention. Now, here are sign 7s you're ready to date based on God's standards and not the world's standards. First one, you can be alone without being lonely. St. Teresa of Avila, a spiritual genius, wrote in The Interior Castle, "The soul that loves God cannot be lonely, for love himself is her companion." Let that sink in. If you're dating because you can't stand being alone, you're not seeking love. You're fleeting emptiness. And predators can smell that neediness from miles away. Here's a therapist litmus test. Try this. Spend a full Saturday alone with this itinerary. Holy hour, no music, no distraction. Solo brunch, no phone, no scrolling, nothing. If this sounds miserable to you, you're at a risk for codependency. And that is what the Catechism of the Catholic Church calls enslavement to emotions in CCC 1608. Here's a journal prompt. What am I trying to escape by dating? Sit with that question before you swipe right. 2, your ex doesn't live rent-free in your mind. St. John Paul II proved in Love and Responsibility that unresolved attachment distorts new relationships. If you compare your dates to your ex, or if you secretly check their Instagram, or maybe feel your stomach drop when their name comes up, honey, you're not free to love someone else. You're emotionally bigamous. Now here's a clinical exercise that you can do. The goodbye letter ritual. And this is inspired by Jeremiah 31:34. What I need you to do is write a letter. Don't send it, with 3 sections. 1, what I learned from you. 2, what I forgive you for. And 3, what I release to God. Bury it or burn it as a physical act of closure. If you skip this step, well, maybe because it's been years, that's a red flag. Because my friends, time doesn't heal. Intentional work does. 3, you can name your non-negotiables. Now, St. Thomas Aquinas taught that prudence requires shrewdness in Summa Theologica. Here's a translation. Vague standards attract wolves in sheep's clothing. Compare these 2 lists. The first list, good Catholic guy, versus the other list, prays the rosary daily, apologizes without being asked, reads Humane Vitae. Well, the first list is a marketing slogan. The second is a saint in the making checklist. Here's an example for you. A lady realized too late that she ignored the idea of temper with the family because this man prayed. Number 4 is your finances reflect your readiness. A healthy relationship needs a foundation of practical stability. St. Joseph worked diligently to provide for the Holy Family. You're called to be a good steward of your resources as well. And that's CCC 2409. This isn't about perfection. It's about showing love through responsibility. Here's a gentle reality check. I've walked with many wonderful Catholics who felt called to marriage, but realized they needed to, 1, build consistent saving habits, 2, grow in financial self-discipline, and 3, develop career stability. Now, these aren't prerequisites for God's love. Absolutely not. But they are practical ways we can prepare to care for others, especially in the season of singleness, and especially true for men. But here's a hope-filled perspective. Remember that God provides through our cooperation with Him. And as you grow in this area, you're not just preparing for marriage, you're actually becoming more Christ-like in your stewardship. So small, consistent step today creates the stability tomorrow's vocation will need. Here's an action step that you can take. This week, try one practical thing. Whether it's meeting with a financial mentor or advisor, or setting up an automatic saving account, or learning budget basics. Whatever it is, your future self and your future family, they will thank you. Next category is that you've done the family system work. St. Augustine wrote, "In my wounds, I saw my father's sins." Until you unpack your parents' marriage patterns, maybe see how you were disciplined in the family before, or figure out your family communication styles, well, what you'll do is you'll unconsciously recreate them. Here's a clinical tool for you. What you want to do is map out 3 generations of relationship cycles. You want to circle toxic patterns, so maybe stonewalling, addiction, abuse, and you want to ask, which am I repeating? Your future spouse deserved a healed you, not a trauma replica. Our next category is that you can handle conflict without a meltdown. The hottest Catholic couple, my friends, isn't the one with the best matching Instagram aesthetics. It's actually a pair who can disagree without that silent treatment. The one that can say, "I was wrong." What you want to do is you want to navigate family tensions. St. Francis de Sales once said, "A single Our Father said in anger is worth more than 100 recited in irritation." So if you're still rage texting or ghosting, my friend, you are not ready for covenant love. Next up, you're willing to walk away. And this is a hard one. Blessed Carlo Acutis said, "All things pass except God." The holy singles I've worked with share one trait in common, and that is they'd rather die than marry outside of God's will. Not because they're rigid, but because they've tasted divine love. So here's the final test. If God said, "Never," could you say amen to that with peace? If not, you're still idolizing marriage. Next up, we have the 3 neurological signs that you're still trauma bonded to your past. Your brain has this biological betrayal button. When trauma hits, it gets stuck, making you crave that hurt you got. All right, now for the juicy, nerdy stuff. 3 neurological signs you're trauma bonded to your past. Get ready for them. Your brain has this biological betrayal button. Here's what it does. When trauma hits, it gets stuck, and it makes you crave what hurt you. So let's expose together these 3 neurological traps that keeps Catholics chained to toxic relationships. And we're also going to look at the saint-approved solutions to break free. Step number 1, your brain on trauma and the dopamine. So your brain on trauma has that dopamine lie. And that dopamine lie says, "I can't stop thinking about them." When you remember an abusive ex, your nucleus accumbens, which is the addiction center in your brain, it lights up identically to a cocaine craving. That information is from Nature Neuroscience, published in 2022. This isn't love, my friends. It's a chemical warfare. Scriptural anecdote for this is that I will give you a new heart and remove your heart of stone. And that's Ezekiel 36:26. God rewires what trauma broke. And here's a saintly solution. St. Margaret of Cortana, who escaped an abusive relationship, spent 3 years in solitary prayer before dating again. Her rule? No new romance until the old cravings die. Now, I'm not saying spend the next 3 years alone. What I am saying is offer old cravings to God. Here's a therapist's tool. 90-day dopamine detox. What you want to do is you want to delete all photos and contact. When craving hits, pray Psalm 147:3, pray it aloud, and replace romantic fantasizing with written gratitude list. Next up, we have the cortisol trap, which is, "They're bad for me, but I miss them." Have you ever found yourself saying that? I'll tell you why. Chronic trauma floods your body with cortisol, and that is the stress hormone. Now, over time, your brain mistakes chaos for passion. And that's what ends up happening. Now, this explains why toxic feels a lot like chemistry. A scriptural anecdote for you, though. God gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power. 2 Timothy 1:7. Cortisol, my friends, is the fear's fingerprint. Here's a saintly solution for you. Saint Infino, the patron saint of trauma survivors, teaches peace is the litmus test. If your body doesn't relax around someone, it's not God's will, no matter how exciting they feel. Here's a therapist's tool. Do a body scan exercise. Think of your ex's name. Notice, does your chest tighten? Do you clench your jaw? Now, say Jesus. If tension drops, that's your body saying, not holy. Next up, we have the mirror neuron effect, which is I become who they want. Now, mirror neuron, it makes you unconsciously mimic toxic patterns. And that, my friends, is from Science Daily 2023. Ever notice yourself adopting their speech pattern, maybe losing your boundaries, abandoning devotions to please them? That, my friend, is not compromise. It's actually neurological hacking. So what's the spiritual antidote? Do not conform to this world, but be transformed. And that is Romans 12:2. God made your mind plastic, not passive. And here's a saintly solution. Saint Joan of Arc, who refused to change even for the king, said, I am what God made me. Here's a therapist tool for you. Identify anchors. What you want to do is write 3 non-negotiables. For example, I pray before a meal and I want someone else to do that. When tempted to compromise, physically grab onto a crucifix and pray. Now for our last part of today's video, the 10-point dating readiness examine. Here's what you're going to do. We've diagnosed the lies. Now it's time for the test. This is a 10-point examine, and it's modeled after St. Ignatius's discernment rules. And the hope is that it will reveal to you whether you're actually ready for dating with surgical precision. Not what you hope is true, but rather what is actually true. So we're looking for the raw truth. Warning, this will become uncomfortable, but let's go for it. All right, so you're going to score yourself 1 through 10 on each of these. 1, attachment clarity. I can name my attachment style. Secure, anxious, avoidant, and explain how it affects my relationships with others. Here's a therapist's note. 72% of Catholics misidentify their style, and that is Journal of Attachment 2023. The next one is fantasizing fast. I've gone 3 months without romantic fantasizing. Daydreaming about marriage, kids, whatever it is, that life with someone I'm not courting. St. John of the Cross says, imaginary joys are like sickly air in dark night of the soul. Next up, sexual integrity. All sexual sins, masturbation, porn, fornication are confessed, and I have battle plan against temptation. That is CCC 2352. Here's a clinical fact. Relapse rates drop 60% with accountability. And that's from APA 2021. Next one, X detox. So no contact with the X, including social media stalking, for 6+ months. The next one is family trauma map. I've identified 3 generational wounds, addiction, abuse, divorce, for example, and how they affect me. Bone family system research confirms that this prevents repetition. Next one is financial foundation. I tithe or I give to charity, maybe 10%, save 15%, and could afford to support a family within 2 years. The next one is conflict mastery. I handle disagreement without silent treatment, rage texting, or needing to win. The Gottman Institute's 5-to-1 positivity ratio requires that this be the case. The next one is sacred solitude. I genuinely enjoy 24+ hours alone. No people, no screen, no distractions. St. Teresa's soul as a castle tests. Now for the non-negotiables. I've written 5 deal breakers For example, must pray rosary daily, and I won't bend on them. Next up is vocational surrender. If God said never marry, I could say amen with peace. Now, I would say that's hard because you know your calling, but make sure that it's because of your calling. Now, what I need you to do is add up your score. If it's under 70, you're not ready. But what you can do is actually work towards that. Open your wounds towards God because now you know what they are. And now you know what He is calling you to do and how you're going to do it. Now, here's a prayer. Jesus, I place all this desire on your altar. Mary, undoer of knots, heal my hurry. Saint Joseph, guard my heart beyond my feelings. Amen. My friends, thank you so much for being with me today, and I will be with you in the next video. Bye for now.